After quite a few successful Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles titles under their belt, Konami wanted to focus on a genre of video games that was absolutely on fire at the time: the fighting game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters was released for the NES, SNES, and Genesis, but we're going to look at the 16-bit versions here in this review. Now, while the SNES and Genesis versions were released right around the same time, they are completely different games. In the Genesis version, the Turtles are on a mission to rescue Master Splinter from Krang, who has Splinter held hostage in the alternate universe Dimension X. Along the way, you'll face a clone of every selectable character. The character selection isn't too bad. I mean, you have all 4 Turtles, but along with that, there's a few exciting selections like Casey Jones and April O'Neil. I must say, as a kid, Casey Jones was probably my favorite Turtles character, and I was extremely excited about the Genesis version just for the fact that it included him. Too bad the game doesn't execute in the gameplay department. Now, the first problem I have is the controls. It uses a 3-button layout. A is for punch or weapon attack, B is for kicks, and C is for taunts. And as far as I can tell, taunting does absolutely nothing for you but leave you vulnerable for attacks. And pressing attack buttons with directional buttons will give you different moves, but it still feels very limited. The gameplay is a little on the rough side. The AI can get pretty cheap at times. I mean, what the hell is this? And I've noticed a few other problems that are kind of specific to characters, like Leo. He has 2 swords, which should make for a nice attack, but they don't barely reach. I mean, his kicks have more reach than his swords. The weapons just feel pointless at times in this game. Now, remember how excited I was as a kid about playing as Casey Jones? Well, he sucks. Within a few seconds of playing as him, I realized I would never pick him again. The gameplay is also a bit on the difficult side. Even on the easiest setting, I find myself having problems running through all the enemies. Leo and Raph are probably the only players I'm decent with. I like their movesets. Don and Michelangelo, on the other hand, aren't as good in my opinion, and I don't even bother using the other fighters. Now, the character sprites look pretty good, but the level designs are just plain ugly. It's like the backgrounds use 20 colors max. They look bad. I know the Genesis can do better than this. Some of the stages are destructible, which is cool, and it was pretty popular at the time and kind of rarely seen in games, but doesn't really make up for the bad backgrounds. Now, I know the soundtrack was pretty popular and praised, but I'm not a big fan. I don't care who composed it. I'm also not impressed with the sound effects. Everything sounds choppy and really low quality. The in-game voices sound almost comical. After a match, you'll sometimes see a replay, which is a cool idea, but they didn't execute it quite right. It randomly pops up with no sound and runs at the same speed as the game. A few times I actually thought my enemy had come back from the dead for a last-minute fight. It all just feels kind of out of place. Even though the game features a number of modes, they're pretty much all the same. 1-player, tournament, practice. There isn't really any difference between the 3 other than a few minor things that aren't even worth talking about. All in all, for some reason I enjoyed this game as a kid, but it's pretty disappointing now. Luckily, the same can't be said for its SNES counterpart. Now this is how a fighting game should be made. In this story, Karai kidnaps not only Splinter but also April O'Neil, and it's up to the Turtles to get them back. There's also a tournament mode of the game, which is based on the fighting tournament that the Turtles take place in to take down Shredder and also win a large amount of money. Besides the 4 Turtles, you can also select from Shredder and a few others, including an original character named Asuka, whoever that is. She never appeared in anything else ever again. The game uses the main 4 face buttons of the SNES controller. You have 2 weak and 2 strong attacks, and everything actually feels really smooth with the controls. The special moves are performed very easily, and I found little to no trouble pulling the moves off at any time. The weapons actually feel useful in this game, with plenty of reach and creative attacks. I only wish I could have seen Casey Jones in this version, as I know they would have done him some justice here. Honestly, this is probably one of the best playing fighters I've ever played. On a level of fun, it's the closest thing to Street Fighter that I can think of. I can imagine that's what they were going for, and if so, they did a damn good job. You can perform special super moves that are achieved after filling a special meter, similar to Street Fighter, but these can't be performed in story mode, which is kind of a bummer. I don't know why the game doesn't take advantage of the full screen, but there's a large black bar at the bottom and a smaller one at the top of the screen. Not a big deal, but I mean, is it really necessary? The stages look fantastic, and the levels just feel fun and really bring you into the Turtles world. The fighters all look really good and run really smoothly. I mean, I really like the animation style here with the characters. It all looks really nice. The cutscenes are a very nice touch too, but both in story and tournament mode, they get a little repetitive. Nevertheless, I'd rather have them than not. I mean, they look really good. I also really like the music in this game. I mean, I think they did a really good job here. Check this out. Along with good music, we get some good sound effects too, and all the voices sound nice, with what seems to be a simulated surround sound effect on them. Bebop and Rocksteady even make an appearance in one of the levels, which is awesome, but I really wish they would have been part of the game, as they were 2 of my favorite bad guys growing up. I love the fact that Rat King's in the game, but only as one of the bosses, though him and Karai can be unlocked with a cheat, but only in 2-player mode. The game also has a watch mode, if you want to watch for some reason. I don't really get it. I guess it's just a filler for the menu or something. This game was a huge part of my childhood, and I still play it to this day on a regular basis. Definitely one of my favorite fighters of all time. It was the best of both worlds for me. 2 of my favorite things growing up, fighting games and Ninja Turtles. And they did a really good job of putting it all together. It would be absolute perfection if it had Casey Jones and maybe Bebop and Rocksteady in it, but still, it's a great game. It's funny, 2 games, same name, 2 consoles, same basic premise, yet so different.